to empower the people. One of the most updated portals for online publication, Homeopathy 360, it constitutes all kinds of course material for students, latest news and events, career opportunities, research updates, articles from great classical contemporary practitioners, periodic literature, journals, videos, presentations, synopses, etc. As always, Homeopathy 360 has tried to connect homeopaths worldwide and broadcast their talent, aiming advancement of homeopathy as an evidence-based science. I would like to introduce you to our website now. I hope everybody is clear with the website. The website is www.homeopathy360.com. So we have here all the sections like course material, examination section. You have all subjects covered, the content of all subjects, the examination point of view questions, study material. Clinical section, we have our peer reviewed journal, The Homeopathic Heritage, plus the HomeoBuzz, our online heritage, news, events, latest jobs, information about anything you want regarding homeopathy. So this is what it is, and I hope this aims for the advancement of homeopathy. Plus, Homeopathy 360 has been an exceptional education hub for each generation of homeopaths, whether an academician, a clinician, or a researcher. We organize every single information related to homeopathy and make it universally accessible, making sure that we are the best at what we do. On behalf of all our team, I also invite all the esteemed homeopaths present with us right now to contribute your knowledge and experiences in the core area of your expertise. You can also visit our website or contact us on mail for the same. Now, let me acquaint you with the members of our team who will be working behind the scenes while I conduct this webinar. Dr. Rajesh will be with us at the backend system to ensure that the webinar runs smooth. I welcome you, Dr. Rajesh, with us. And not testing much of your patience, let me tell you that the uniqueness of webinar lies in reaching each one of our learners personally and allowing every learner to raise questions to our speakers and get their answers right away. On your screens, you have a chat box wherein you can type your questions and send to us by pressing the button next to the box. Also, we'll be running a question answer session at the end of the webinar where you can clarify your queries. We won't be interrupting the speakers in between. You can raise your hand at the end or in between if you want to share your video and ask your questions online to the speaker. So now, without wasting any more time, I would like to introduce you all to the dignified speakers of today's webinar. We have Professor Dr. Purav Desai with us. He's the Principal and Hospital Superintendent, Professor in the Department of Anatomy, Jawaharlal Nehru Homeopathic Medical College, Vadodara. Dr. Purav Desai is a highly qualified and experienced homeopath working actively in the academic and administrative field of homeopathy at national, state, and university level. He is the Dean, Faculty of Homeopathy at Parallel University, and is ex-Dean Faculty of Homeopathy at Saurashtra University. He is an empaneled assessor of NABH for Ayush hospitals. He is ex-president Vadodara unit during the academic. He was ex-president of Hamai Vadodara unit during the academic year 2010-12, and presently he is also an executive member in the same unit. He'll be taking the topic anatomy of appendix and its clinical application. Our second speaker is Dr. Jaykumar V. Bhanuse. He is MD Homeopathy, FCAH, Principal and Professor, HOD, Anatomy, Honorable R.R. Patil College of Homeopathy, Sangli, Maharashtra. He's teaching anatomy since 20 years. His topic will be anatomy of pancreas with its applied part. So without wasting any more time, I would like to invite our first speaker, Dr. Purav Desai, with us. So his topic is anatomy of appendix and its clinical application. So we shall begin with him. I hope you guys are excited for the same. Let's begin.
Good afternoon, one and all present over here. Uh, Thank you very much, BGN Group and Homeopathy 360 for calling me. Am I audible, madam? Hello.
Sir, you're audible. You're audible.
Sorry.
Sir, you're audible. Please start.
Okay. So today, this topic I have chosen to just to recall the one of the clinical subtopic for the practitioners as well as the students. I have kept both in my mind. For students, probably the anatomy of appendix is very important in an exam point of view, as well as it is also important for their clinical practice in the future. At the same time, there are practicing doctors. Maybe it happens during the event course, they may forget the anatomy. So just recalling this anatomy, I have chosen this topic. So today, let me start this session. Can everyone able to see the screen, PPT screen?
Yes, sir.
Fine.
It's visible.
Fine. So let's start the today's session without wasting much of the time. Today we will see the anatomy of appendix. Let me brief you first what is appendix. See, in GI tube, there is one projection like worm. Generally, it is present at the commencement of the large intestine. That means it is attached to the cecum. So, the appendix is a worm-like diverticulum arising from the posteromedial wall of the cecum. If you see the exit position, it is 2 centimeter below the ileocecal opening. See, here you find there is the cecum. This cecum is nothing but the adjoining part between the large intestine and small intestine. Here you can see this is the terminal part of the small intestine, and here you see this is the beginning of the large intestine. So this is the beginning, and this commencing point is the blind sac that we call cecum. And from the posteromedial side, just below to this joint, there is one worm-like projection extending, and that we call the appendix. If you see the dimension of this appendix, it is varying to 2 to 20 centimeter in length. It may be of simple only of 2 centimeter, or it may elongated up to 20 centimeter. But if you see the average of it is around 9 centimeter. One important thing to be noted is this appendix is larger or longer in children as compared to the adult one. If you see the diameter of it is very narrow. It's only of 5 millimeter, and sometimes it may be obliterated. If we see the location of it, abdomen we have divided into 9 regions. This region that we call the right iliac fossa. So appendix occupies the right iliac fossa. So it is lies in the right iliac fossa. Now, one important thing is the base. The base of this appendix remains fixed all the way. But this tip can migrate because the portion of appendix is suspended by a small peritoneal fold that we call mesoappendix, through which it can move at all direction. It may be like this, it may be like this, it may be like this. So position, if you see the position, the base of the appendix remains fixed while its tip can point in any direction. And according to this position of the tip, the appendix can be of different types. This position can be compared with an hour end of a clock. Let me explain you. Here you find there is a base, and you see the appendix can be extended to any direction. This tip can migrate to any direction. This we can very well explain as per the hour end of the clock. Let me explain in deep. Suppose this is your cecum. This is the base. Base remains fixed, but the appendix can move like this. Appendix can move like this. Appendix can move like this in any direction. But this direction of the tip, accordingly, we divide it into various types. First, we will start with the 11 o'clock position. See, here you find there is a 11 o'clock position. So I am just showing you. If you see in the right iliac fossa, this 11 o'clock position in which the appendix is facing or directing like a hour end of 11 o'clock. What you notice is here it is on either side of the colon, and that is why this 11 o'clock position is also called the paracolic position. Para means it is near to it. As it is near to the colon, the name given paracolic position. See, in anatomy, every word has a meaning. All words have that specific meaning, and accordingly the names are given. So first position, if we see in appendix, is the 11 o'clock position, where you find this appendix is like our end of the 11 o'clock, and it is on either side of the colon, and that is why it's called the paracolic position. The next position is the 12 o'clock position. The appendix lies behind the cecum or colon as if our end of the 12 o'clock. Let me explain you. Here you find there is a 12 o'clock, right? Suppose this is the base and it is facing almost like a 12 o'clock, our end of the 12 o'clock. Now see here, it is just behind the cecum. It remains behind cecum. In anatomy, retro is the word for behind. So that is why this position is called retrocecal position. And if we compare, 65% of individuals are having this retrocecal position. So the anatomy, if we compare the position of appendix, this is the commonest position. The third position is 2 o'clock position. In 2 o'clock position, the appendix passes upwards and to the left as if the hour end of 2 o'clock. It's called splenic position. I can explain you what happened. Suppose this is the 2 o'clock position. Now see, we are on the right iliac fossa. The base is on right iliac. In 2 o'clock position, what happened? It is pointing towards the spleen, and that is why this position called a splenic position. Now, this ileum, terminal part of the ileum, it's play a important role. The appendix may be anterior to it. The appendix may be posterior to it. If it is anterior to it, we call it pre-ileal position, and if it is posterior to it, we call it post-ileal position. So in 2 o'clock position, the appendix passes upwards and to the left as if the hour end of 2 o'clock. It may lies in front of the ileum. Here it calls the pre-ileal, and if it is behind the ileum, then it's called the post-ileal position. The post-ileal position is considered to be a dangerous position because here the chances of infection or chances of inflammations are very common. The next position is the 3 o'clock position. This position we call the promontoric position. Here the appendix is horizontally and to the left, pointing to the sacral promontory. Let me explain you. Suppose this is the pelvis and here you find the sacrum. This is nothing but the outer and upper border of the first sacral vertebra that we call sacral promontory, and the appendix is directing towards it, and that is why it's called the promontoric position. The fourth position, 4 o'clock position, here the appendix passes downwards and to the pelvis as if our end of the 4 o'clock. Here the appendix is basically into the pelvis. Suppose here you find the pelvis. This is the base. The appendix is almost passing into the cavity of the pelvis. So that is why this position is called pelvic position. The pelvic position is the second most common position of the appendix, and almost 30% of individuals where you find this second most common position, 4 o'clock position. The last is the 6 o'clock position. Here the appendix passes downwards below the cecum as if the hour end is at 6 o'clock, and this we call subcecal position. Now see here what happened. Suppose this is the cecum and the appendix is passing just below to it. In anatomy, we use prefix sub. Sub means below. As it is passing just below to the cecum, the name of this position we call the subcecal position. So this is how you find the various types of the appendix. I again tell you the base of the appendix remains constant, but the tip can migrate to any direction. It may be at 11 o'clock, it may be at 12 o'clock, it may be at 2 o'clock, it may be at 3 o'clock, it may be 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Accordingly, the names are given: paracolic position, the retrocolic position, the splenic position, the promontoric position, the pelvic position, and subcecal position. Let's go ahead to it. We also see about the appendicular orifice. As I explain you, the lumen of the appendix is very narrow. It's only of 5 millimeter. And as the age advances, the appendix also retrogrades. In children, it is the smaller, and as adulthood, it gradually decreases in size. So this lumen is also eventually obliterates. So if you see the appendicular orifice, it is situated on the posteromedial aspect of the cecum, 2 centimeter below the ileocecal opening. It is occasionally guarded by an indistinct semilunar fold of mucous membrane known as the valve of Gerlach. It can be marked at the surface by point situated 2 centimeter below the junction of transtubercular and right lateral plane. See, we divide the abdomen into 9 regions. The horizontal planes, the lower horizontal plane that we also call transtubercular plane because it passes from the tubercle of the hip bone on either side. So you earmark the line that is the transtubercular plane. Same way in the middle on either side, suppose this is the median plane dividing the two halves of the body. If we go on the right lateral plane, right half further divides into two, so that we call right lateral plane. So the adjoining part between the right lateral plane and the transtubercular plane, you go little below to it, that is at the 2 centimeter below to it. Here it is nothing but the base of the appendix. So here you find the appendicular orifice. One important thing is McBurney point. McBurney point is the site of maximum tenderness. Suppose this point, if we want to get it, there are two superficial landmarks. The anterior superior iliac spine on right side. This is one of the surface marking point, and the umbilicus. So if you draw a line joining these 2 points, a line extending from umbilicus to anterior superior iliac spine. If we take the junction point of lateral 1/3 and medial 2/3, it is approximate at the same level. And this point is nothing but the point of base of the appendix, or we call appendicular orifice. And in the commonest clinical condition that we call appendicitis, where this is the point where you find the maximum tenderness, which has been explained by McBurney. So the McBurney point is the site of maximum tenderness in appendicitis. This point lies at the junction of lateral 1/3 and medial 2/3 of a line joining the right anterior superior iliac spine to the umbilicus. Now we will see the various relations with the appendix. The relations may be of visceral relation may be of peritoneal relation. But as the age advances, the appendix becomes very small. The visceral relations are almost few. But if you see the peritoneal relation, the appendix is suspended by a small fold of peritoneum. Here you see this is the triangular fold of peritoneum, and this peritoneal folds allows the free movement of the appendix, and that is why this tip can radiate to anywhere from the base. So if you see the peritoneal relation, the appendix has a peritoneum that we call the mesoappendix. I am again adding one thing. Meso is the prefix for peritoneum. Any abdominal structure who have their peritoneum, for naming them we use the prefix meso. If the peritoneum is of ovary, we call the mesoovarium. If the peritoneum of transverse colon, we call mesotransverse colon. Same way, the peritoneum of enteron, that we call mesentery. Same way, the peritoneum of appendix, that we call the mesoappendix. Let's see the blood supply. If you see the GI tube is basically developed by three main guts, that is the foregut, midgut, and the hindgut. And the abdominal aorta gives three ventral branches for these guts. The first ventral branch, that we call celiac artery, the celiac artery is meant to supply the derivative of the foregut. The second ventral branch, that we call the superior mesenteric artery, this basically supplies all the derivatives of the midgut. And the third one, that is the inferior mesenteric artery, that basically supplies the all derivatives of the hindgut. Now, if you see the development, the appendix is basically derived from the midgut. If we summarize the derivatives of midgut, that includes the lower half of the second part of the duodenum, the third part of the duodenum, the fourth part of duodenum, whole jejunum, whole ileum, the cecum, the appendix, the ascending colon, and right two-thirds of the transverse colon. So appendix is basically a part of midgut. So naturally it must be supplied by branches of the superior mesenteric artery, which is the main artery of the midgut. Now, this superior mesenteric artery gives one branch that we call ileocolic artery. Basically, it is supplying the terminal part of the ileum and beginning of the colon. So that is why the name given ileocolic artery. From ileocolic artery, there is one specific branch that is to supply the appendix, and that we call appendicular artery. So the appendicular artery is a branch of ileocolic artery. This appendicular artery enters through the mesoappendix. See, the role of peritoneum is to allow the passage of artery, veins, nerves, lymphatics, and fat. So the artery supplying the appendix also enter through this mesoappendix. Here, from peritoneum of this appendix, it's passing from base to the tip and supply the substance of appendix. It is anastomosis with the branches of posterior cecal artery. So this is how you find the blood supply. So main blood supply is through the appendicular artery. Just recall, appendicular artery is the branch of ileocolic artery, and ileocolic artery is the branch of superior mesenteric artery. Now, the venous drainage. The venous drainage is through the appendicular vein. This appendicular vein ultimately drains into the ileocolic and finally into the superior mesentery. So it is an exactly opposite flow in comparison with the artery. Superior mesenteric artery gives ileocolic, ileocolic gives appendicular. Same way, venous drainage, appendicular vein drains into the ileocolic, and finally this drains into the superior mesenteric vein. Lymphatics. Lymphatic drainage. Most of the lymph drain directly into the ileocolic group of lymph nodes. So along with the appendicular artery, there is a small appendicular group of lymph nodes, and along with the ileocolic artery, there is the large ileocolic group of lymph nodes. So most of the lymph from appendix, they directly drains into the ileocolic node. But in certain cases, what happened? There is a presence of appendicular node. So in this condition, the lymph from appendix first drains into the appendicular group of lymph nodes, and from appendicular group lymph nodes, it drains into the ileocolic group of lymph nodes. So the lymphatic drainage, if you see, the most of the lymph drains directly into the ileocolic group of lymph nodes, and sometimes there is a presence of appendicular nodes. They are situated in the mesoappendix and receives some of the lymph into it, and then leads to the ileocolic group of lymph nodes. So this is how you find the blood supply, venous drainage, and lymphatic drainage. See, remember, It is a derivative of midgut. So main blood supply through the branches of superior mesenteric artery. Superior mesenteric artery gives branch ileocholic, and ileocholic gives branch appendicular. So venous drainage is exactly opposite. First, it is in the appendicular vein, then in the ileocholic vein, and then into the superior mesenteric vein. If you see the nerve supply, basically all the abdominal viscera are having the autonomic innervation. Here, there is an involvement of the sympathetic innervations and the parasympathetic innervation. The sympathetic innervation is derived from T9 to T10 segment through celiac plexuses. Basically, appendix is a derivative of midgut, but it receives nerve supply from little higher level, and that is why the pain of the appendix first feel little above than its usual side, that is the umbilical region. So the sympathetic innervation derived from T9 to T10 segment through the celiac plexuses, while the parasympathetic innervation is derived through the vagus. The referred pain of appendix felt at umbilicus, similar to that of the small intestine and testes. This is the reason in appendicitis, the first pain is felt in the umbilical region, and then it becomes the localized, that is at the McBurney's point. If you see the development, cecum and appendix both develops from the cecal bud arising from the post-arterial segment of midgut loop. As I explained you, this is the derivative of midgut. So from the midgut, there is a post-arterial segment, and through which the cecum and appendix develops. The proximal part dilates from the cecum, while the distal part remains narrow as the appendix. Initially, the appendix arises from the apex of the cecum, but due to rapid growth of the lateral wall of the cecal pouch, the attachment of appendix shift medially. Now see, basically, appendix and cecum both are basically developed from the post-arterial segment of midgut. Now, the cecum grows up and the appendix grows down. So first it is in the center and just on the bottom of the cecum. But gradually what happened? The cecum, especially the lateral pouch of it or lateral half of it, is enormously enlarged and dilate. And this dilatation we call the ampullary type. So majority of time, if you see the anatomy of cecum may be of different types. It may be of conical type, it may be of intermediate type, or it may be of ampullary type. But majority of cases where you find the cecum is of ampullary type and appendix arises from the posteromedial aspect. So this is the reason in ampullary type, as the right lateral pouch of the cecum enormously enlarge and dilate, the appendix seems to be shifted on the posteromedial aspect. Let me explain you the small points related to the histology of appendix. The lumen of the appendix is very narrow. Many of the time it is again obliterated. There are no villi. Villi is the character of the small intestine. The small intestine needs a large surface area, and to overcome this large surface area, there are presence of finger-like projections in the inner mucosa of the small intestine that we call the villi. These villi are not there in the appendix. The epithelium invaginates to form the crypts of Lieberkühn. The muscularis mucosa is ill-defined. Here again, this can be one of the reason of repeated infection into the appendix. The muscularis mucosa is ill-defined. Submucosa reveals many lymphoid masses. One other important thing is there are presence of lymphoid mass, and this is the reason the appendix can also call the abdominal tonsils. So for students, you just remember sometime there may be a small MCQ, which structure is called the tonsil of the appendix, where you can answer it is the appendix. Muscularis externa comprise of two layers, and among them two layer, the outermost layer is made up of serous layer. So this is about the short description about the histological aspect of the appendix. Now, why we study appendix? Basically for the application aspect. So for application aspect, we are basically studying the anatomy of the appendix. Let's summarize. The commonest thing which encounter in any structure of the body is inflammation. So here's also you find the possibility of inflammation. And for inflammation, what we do? We do the prefix, or we basically add the suffix itis. So inflammation of appendix we call appendicitis. So appendicitis, it's an inflammation of appendix. The anatomical fact relevant to the appendicitis are, if we compare the other parts of the GI tube, appendix is likely to get inflamed. There are certain anatomical facts related to it. Let me share you. Number one, if there is appendicitis, pain of this appendicitis first felt in the region of umbilicus. I have explained you the nerve supply. Basically, it is receiving nerve supply from celiac plexus, that is little ahead above than the normal level, and that is why the first pain felt in the umbilical region. This is referred pain. Both of these, umbilicus and the appendix, are innervated by segment T10. Appendix is by sympathetic fibers and umbilicus by the somatic fibers. With increasing inflammation, pain felt in the right iliac fossa due to involvement of parietal peritoneum. Now see, as the inflammation increases, it becomes more local. So local means exact site, and if we compare the size, the base is only the fixed size. The tip can move all around. So base is the constant site, and the constant site is the McBurney's point. So first, in appendicitis, pain felt in the umbilical region, and as the inflammation proceeds, it becomes localized and more centralized at the McBurney's point. The pain is because of involvement of the parietal peritoneum. See, we have seen the covering. Appendix having the double layered covering of peritoneum. There is a parietal peritoneum and the visceral peritoneum. Visceral peritoneum is always pain insensitive, while the parietal peritoneum is highly sensitive to pain, and that is why the pain of appendix is very severe. Appendicitis is common because there is a presence of lymphatic follicle in the submucosa. We have seen the histology where I have explained you there is a much more collection of lymphoid follicles in the appendix, and that is why this presence of lymphatic follicle can be one of the reason for repeated inflammation of it. Appendicular artery is an end artery. We have seen the appendicular artery is the branch of ileocholic and it's a branch of superior mesenteric. But there is no later on the anastomosis. Collateral anastomosis is not there because it is the last organ. So that is why the appendix is having blood supply through the end arteries, and this is the reason that appendix inflammation of appendix is again very common. Gaps in the muscularis externa causes fast spread of infection. Again, I have also explained you in the histology there is muscularis is not constant, and because of this also the infection is very common in the appendix. McBurney's point is the site of most tenderness in appendicitis. I have explained you to ascertain the exact site of McBurney's point. Here you can use two important things. First, you find out the anterior superior iliac point. That is the most surface point, most prominent surface point of view area, and you can see the umbilicus. Draw a imaginary line passing from right anterior superior iliac spine to umbilicus, and take a junction point of lateral 1/3 and medial 2/3. That is nothing but the McBurney's point. Examination of acute appendicitis reveals following physical sign. Here also there are some certain clinical tips. The hyperesthesia in right iliac fossa, that is one important thing. Tenderness at McBurney's point, that is the another point. And third point, muscle guard and rebound tenderness over the appendix. Again repeat, rebound tenderness. So when you press the McBurney's point, there is the dull pain, but while you release the pain pressure, there is a tremendous pain, and that we call the rebound tenderness. So this rebound tenderness is basically suggesting of involvement of peritoneum, especially the parietal peritoneum. So here also in appendix, there is the rebound tenderness in the McBurney's point. So I again repeat how you examine. First, you give a gentle pressure over the right iliac fossa. The patient will feel the pain, but while you release the pressure, there is a tremendous pain, and that we call the rebound tenderness. If you see the other points for applied, that includes appendicectomy. Surgeons generally remove the appendix as a line of treatment. As they are surgeon, they know how to remove it, so that is why they remove. So removal, for removal in anatomy we use word ectomy. Ecto means out, ectomy means removing out. So here we are removing the appendix, we call it appendicectomy. Other applied aspect includes appendicular dyspepsia. Sometimes there is a dyspepsia, and here the reason is because of the appendix. Appendix is basically a part of GI tube. So in chronic appendicitis, it produces dyspepsia resembling a disease of stomach or duodenum or gallbladder. It is due to a passage of infected limb to the subpyloric nodes, which causes irritation of pylorus. See, I again explain you what happened. Appendix is the derivative of midgut. So lymph from appendix first drain into the appendicular node, then into the ileocolic node, then into the superior mesenteric node, and from superior mesenteric node it again travels towards the celiac. So that is why during the passage there may be irritation at the level of pylorus, and this causes irritation of pylorus resulting into a dyspepsia, and that is why this dyspepsia we call appendicular dyspepsia. When the appendix is retrocecal in position, extension of hip joint may causes pain because the appendix is disturbed by stretching of psoas major muscle. See, we have seen the various position of the appendix. One of the position is the retrocecal position. What we have noticed here, in retrocecal position, the appendix remain posterior to the cecum. Now, just posterior to the cecum, you find there is a posterior abdominal wall. The posterior abdominal wall is made up of the muscles, including the quadratus lumborum and psoas major. So while we do the position, or we adapting the position of extension, this psoas major muscle will contract. And because of this contraction of psoas major muscle, there may be a compression of appendix between the abdominal viscera and psoas major, resulting into a pain. So this is uncommon, because the commonest position if we see of appendix is not the commonest position of appendix is again the retrocecal position. The third is, in pelvic appendicitis, pain may be felt when the thigh is flexed and medially rotated. Now what happened in pelvic position? What happened? Appendix is pointing into the pelvic cavity. If you see the inner of the pelvic cavity, there is a muscle present, that is the obturator internus. So in this position, what happened? When the obturator internus muscle get contract, basically the action of obturator internus is flexion and the medial rotation at the hip joint. So if we do a flexion and the medial rotation at the hip joint, there may be a chances of compression of appendix between the muscle and the pelvic cavity, and this also leads to the pain. So these are the various clinical aspect of the appendix. Now, being a homeopathy and homeopathic students, let me add something related to homeopathy also in the clinical area. All of you knowing appendicitis is the acute emergency condition, so one has to be very serious about it. The patient of appendicitis must be monitored throughout. But if you see the homeopathic approach, the homeopathic treatment is based on the law of similars, which indicates that the substance capable of producing effects in a healthy person can cure similar symptoms in a sick person also. So this is nothing but the base of the homeopathy. So homeopathy remedies are chosen not only on the basis of disease symptoms but also on the individual miasm. Sometimes the chronic miasm can be responsible for this kind of chronic inflammation. In cases of appendicitis, a constitutional homeopathic medicine helps in relieving inflammation, thereby reducing pain and swelling in appendix. When taken in an appropriate dose, the homeopathic medicines help in avoiding surgery in case of chronic and acute appendicitis, especially when there are no complications such as collection of pus or gangrene. If there is a collection of pus or gangrene or perforation, the patient may have to be operated immediately. Let's see some of the indicated medicines for the appendicitis. If we summarize, there are a few indicated medicines that includes the belladonna, the bryonia, the lycopodium, the arnica, rustox, and the heparsal. Preferably, generally, the acute appendicitis is very common. And if you see, the most acute medicine in homeopathy is belladonna. So I give the first indication of belladonna. This is the first choice of medicine to be indicated in the appendicitis. This medicine is used in the treatment of acute appendicitis, especially due to infection. And the other indications of it includes you may find severe burning and throbbing pain in the area of appendix. There is a cutting type of pain in the abdomen, which feels as if abdomen is gripped by a claw. Pain improves after pressing the abdomen hard and bending forward. Contraction of abdominal muscles that are present in right below the rib cage. These muscles feel like a hard pad during an acute episode of appendicitis. A sensation as if the intestines are being pushed out with gaseous distension of abdomen. There may be a flushes of face due to rush of blood with excessive anxiety during an acute attack. The burning hot fever resulting from infection in appendix and pain aggravated by the slightest touch and movement, cold air and lying down, and pain reduces in a reclined position. These are the symptoms of belladonna. I also suggest if you find a patient with acute appendicitis and if you really want to even refer to a surgeon, then also give the belladonna to him. At least the episode of traveling from your clinic to surgeon, that can be better for the patient. In vitro studies suggest that belladonna has a positive effect on body's immune response, so it could be help in prevention and treatment of appendicitis caused due to infections. Sometimes there may no need of appendicectomy. The patient may be treated simply by the medicines, and if the appendix is preserved, then also you can indicate belladonna as a preventive medicine. It has further been demonstrated that belladonna possesses potent anti-inflammatory and analgesic potential, which makes a remedy to choice for reducing appendicitis inflammation and pain. So for pain also you can prescribe the belladonna. The next one is the bryonia. It is best suited to people who are dark in complexion, nervous, and get irritated easily. They have strong muscle and extreme dryness in body. The other indicated symptoms of bryonia includes colicky abdominal pain aggravated by slightest motion, such as coughing, sneezing, or breathing. All of you knowing bryonia aggravated by slightest motion. So appendicitis, where again the patient cannot tolerate a slight mobility. Desire to remain totally still, severe stretching abdominal pain during appendicitis, abdomen sensitive to touch, distension abdomen due to formation of gas during appendicitis, sticking type of pain in the right side of abdomen associated with a throbbing sensation, pain improves after passing light colored stools, and abdominal pain during appendicitis reduces on application of pressure. Constipation with passage of hard and dry stool in some cases. So generally in acute, this may be in the subacute cases of appendicitis, you may think of bryonia. One another important medicine is the lycopodium. Lycopodium has a very good affinity on the GI tube, and this is again a part of the GI system. So the medicine is the best suitable to people who are intelligent but physically weak, people who are prone to gastric troubles with tendency to formation of gas, respond well to this remedy. See, appendix belong to right side, and lycopodium is again the right-sided medicine. So this is again important indication of it. It is used for the treatment of chronic subacute and acute cases of appendicitis. If you see the summarize the symptoms of lycopodium, that includes cutting type of pain in the appendix area. There is a right-sided abdominal pain that radiates to the left, sensation of chilliness and vomiting. Abdomen is sensitive to touch and sensation of chilliness and vomiting. Abdominal appendicitis associated with rumbling sound from stomach with formation of gas, and there is a desire to drink hot water during pain. Pain in appendix region relieved by applying something warm to the area. So these are the symptoms of the lycopodium. Other medicine includes the arnica. This is again important medicine for the appendicitis, generally or especially due to injury in the abdomen, severe right-sided abdominal pain with cutting sensation in the wound, pain increases with the slight pressure and touch, hardness and swelling at the area of appendix, frequent need to pass stool due to gaseous distension, and in case study, Arnica montana was reported to be effective in reducing appendix inflammation and preventing surgery. One another important medicine, that is the Rustox. Rustox is also best suited to people who are prone to suffer from rheumatism on hereditary autoimmune disease disorders related to bones and muscles. So if you find appendicitis in this kind of people, you may think of the Rustox. They have a tendency to fall sick on getting wet, especially if they have been in direct contact with heat. This medicine is used in cases of chronic appendicitis, where you find extreme restlessness due to abdominal pain, with an inability to stay still in one place and anxiety. The person fears that he has been poisoned and will die of it. Pain aggravated by lying down and sitting position. Pain relieved by gentle movement like walking slowly and by sleeping or lying down on the hard surface. The sensitivity to cold air during the acute attack of appendicitis indicates rust tox. Animal study demonstrated that anti-inflammatory effect of rust tox, and thus it may be effective in providing relief from appendicitis symptoms such as swelling and pain. Further studies indicate Rustox can regulate immune function, which is conducive to a reduction in inflammatory swelling in cases of appendicitis. The last medicine I want to add is the Heparsal. This medicine is basically in the condition of suppuration. This medicine works well in a people who have an unhealthy skin and are prone to swollen lymph nodes. Heparsal is used in the treatment of appendicitis caused due to infection and associated with collection of pus. It is especially effective in treating chronic appendicitis, and people who benefit from this remedy have the following symptoms. Again, I repeat, the cutting pain in the appendix region, enlarged lymph nodes in and around the right lower abdomen, collection of pus or abscess formation due to infection, and pain aggravated by dry, cold air, cold wind, sleep on the painful side and by touch, and pain relieved by application of warmth of the affected area. So in acute case, remember first belladonna. In subacute cases, you can remember you can use the lycopodium and brahania. In chronic cases, you can think of this Rustox and the Heparsal. Some dietary advices are also help. There are certain do's. This is important for all the troubles. This includes do regular moderate exercise in your daily routine, eat healthy and nutritious foods, maintain personal and environmental hygiene, make regular walk in fresh air. Patients in homeopathy, there is a myth in homeopathy that these things are not advisable, these things are not. Actually, it is not like that. The patient can have anything in their diet, whatever he desires. Certain foods aggravate the disease condition that can also be taken care by the homeopathic medicine. So this is a myth that foods restrictions are there with homeopathic treatment. Don'ts: avoid strong coffee, strong stimulation drinks, medicinal foods and herbs. Do not consume spoils or hot vegetables and avoid overeating. And I think my time is going to finish, so I just coming to the conclusion. Homeopathic system of medicine is a safe and effective way of curing dynamic disease conditions such as appendicitis. Homeopathic medicines help in avoiding surgery in both the subacute and chronic cases of appendicitis. Additionally, the homeopathic treatments also help in preventing the recurrence of acute episode of appendicitis and complications of appendicitis such as rupture of appendix, abscess or pus formation, infection in the lining of the abdomen, gangrene in appendix, and abnormal taking of tissues, that is adhesions, that can be also prevented by medicines. So in cases where surgery is unavoidable, homeopathic medicine used before and after the surgery helps in reducing anxiety, pain, infection, and blood loss during the surgery. So these are the take-home message from my end, that homeopathy can be useful in such kind of acute conditions. I'm ending my session, madam. Thank you. Over to the organizers, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Dr. Purav Desai. I'm sure that's been a wonderful revision of appendix anatomy for everyone. So, on behalf of 360 and BGen Group, I would like to thank you for giving 360 your valuable time. I would like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Jay Kumar J. Bhanuse, V. Bhanuse. He is MD Homeopathy FCAH, Principal and Professor of HOD Homeopathy, Honorable R. Patil Homeopathic Medical College, Sangli. He's teaching anatomy for the last 20 years. His topic is anatomy of pancreas with its applied part. So over to you, sir. Please begin your session.
Am I audible, madam?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. It was a very nice session by Dr. Desai. Before I start my session, I want to give my thanks to BJN Publish and team of Homeopathy 360 portal and all the staff related to IT department. Because of them, we are able to get in connect. My topic is pancreas anatomy and it's applied. Now, this session, students are attending, the students of different university, they are attending the, just a minute. Am I audible?
Sir, you're audible, but there is an echo sound behind.
Just a minute. Now it is coming?
Yes, sir. Now it's fine.
Okay. Uh, Different students of different university, they are attending this session.
Sir, there is echo sound, I think. Um,
Let me correct.
Something associated with your mic.
My
Oh, God. I am so sorry to everybody present. There is some technical issue with the mic, so it will take a minute or two. I think he's about to come, Dr. Jayakumar. Please wait, have patience. I hope everybody is curious to learn more. So I request everyone to please wait and let the technical issue being resolved. So I just want to request everybody till the time we are reconnecting. We'll let you know the advantages of homeopathy360.com, our portal that we offer to our visitors, whatever things we are offering to the visitors. This is our website www.homeopathy360.com, and I'll just explain you how you can do things with how can you can proceed with this website. The first of all, you need to register as an author. There's an option on the right hand side corner, upper corner of the website, author register. Register as an author first, then you can visit all the articles, latest news. We have blog section. We have upcoming events, latest events, whatever all over the world are being planned in the near future. Though it's the corona time right now, it's a lockdown period, but after that, whatever updates are there or before it had been, so there is a complete update about it. We have latest jobs, whatever jobs are job vacancies come out all over the world, all over India. So we have facts and quotes by great stalwarts. We have a stalwart section with us. We have book review section. If somebody who wants to look for the videos related to homeopathy, you can visit our video section. If you want to post a job, you can also post it here. If you require anybody, if you want to recruit anyone, you can post a job yourself also. We have given an option. Also, we have given an option. There is a feature we feature there's a, you can say, an offer we have brought out, a contest that is of sharing your knowledge with us to contribute to homeopathy. This is what it is, a contest about. We have invited people to share their knowledge, articles, blogs, synopsis, presentation, video, any of thing you want to share with us, your knowledge to the whole world wherever we can reach. So you are invited. If you're a BHMS student or an MD student or a registered medical practitioner, you can connect with us, and you can mail us the article, as well as you can directly upload the article on the website through this option, submission form, on the left hand side upper corner of the website. If you want to subscribe to our newsletter, you can also subscribe to our newsletter, online newsletter, every week, which is being given on regular updates through subscribers button on the left upper side corner. Then we have submission form. This is our submission form where you can get to know whatever benefits you will be getting. We provide, right now the contest is providing rupees 300 for a blog if you fulfill the guidelines and whatever requirements are there for the blog submission. Then we have articles. If you submit articles, you'll get you'll get a cash prize of rupees 400. If you submit a video, a presentation, or your synopsis, you'll get a 500 rupees winner. You'll be a winner of 500 rupees cash prize. So you can write anything, you can contribute to us to this. You when you log in as an author, you can submit now your article. When you submit now, you will be you can obviously register as I'll just show you when you log in directly after registration. So you can log in directly, and then it will be redirecting you to the website, and you can submit here. You can go to the submit now option, click here on submit now. Please take care that you do not provide any unauthentic content or already published content for the website. That's not accepted. Article section, you can post your article, you can upload your image for the article, you can upload blog here, you can upload your synopsis here, your presentation here, your video here. Whatever you want to upload, you can directly upload, and from our end, our whole team will work upon it and then publish you, and you'll be updated through via mail on this regarding the submission and the publication of your articles or blog or synopsis or presentation. Then I would like to tell you whatever course material we have of organon medicine, of organon materia, repertory, pharmacy, light subjects. All we have covered all light subjects. You can have a look. Preventive social medicine, research methodology, and biostatistics is also being covered. Few of the topics. Then we have synopsis, dissertation section, also presentations which are available. Then we have competitive examination study material, MCQs of all maximum subjects we have tried to cover. Then we have question papers of BHMS, few question papers of MD entrance, clinical section, the journal. We have homeopathic heritage, the peer-reviewed offline journal. You can submit articles along whatever articles you want to submit for the peer-reviewed journal. You can submit here. We have the whole section here. The topics are being, last day of submission is the guidelines are being updated. Whatever you want to write, a subjective article, you want to write a case study, you want to write a research paper, all the guidelines are being mentioned. You can have a look and submit here your article from here. And in fact, you can subscribe to the heritage as well through this link here on this, from this section. And we have news, events, jobs, information about homeopathy, which you can visit. So I think our speaker is about to come and he'll be joining us again. I request, I want to ask Rajesh ji if sir is back and he'll be starting again. I think he'll be back soon. He's trying. Till the time being, we can have a look on the latest events. We have latest jobs which we provide. These are the jobs, whether you want to opt for government jobs, internship jobs, part-time jobs, private jobs, whatever you want to look for in your as per your areas, you can go for it. Then we have information about homeopathy in India and abroad, whatever licensing things are being required, whatever government orders come up, homeopathic colleges list, everything is being updated on the website. We have book reviews, we have interviews with many of our esteemed homeopaths. Then we have videos section where you can go for videos. So this is the videos section where you can go for videos, look for videos. The lecture on intermittent diseases by Professor Dr. Rashid Akhtar. And then we have many other videos. You can also visit our YouTube channel via this uh, Homeopathy 360 YouTube channel, and then look for this video. Then we have latest events as well, updated all along. Whatever events go on worldwide, whether it's webinars, whether it's national international conferences, whether it's state conferences, whether it's continued medical education programs like CMEs in different locations all over the country, plus all over the world, the international conferences going on. So you can easily go for it. Also, if you want to advertise with us, you can directly contact us and advertise. If you want to advertise any of your uh, clinics or something like related to pharma or whatever, so whatever better thing you have, you want to share with people, uh, we'll be happy to help you out. Then we have a contemporary section, we have a stalwart section as well. Stalwart section is about all these stalwarts are homeopathic stalwarts. Like we have recently we go for Professor George Vithulka's, Dr. George Vithulka's sayings as well. His all his articles and everything is being updated. You can go for the stalwart section as well, where all stalwarts articles and everything is being published. Then we have, if you go to the main page, we have an article section where you can find out many of the articles, many of the case studies being published, new latest news, anything about homeopathy, anything latest about homeopathy can be searched for here. We have articles related to corona right now going on by different homeopaths, esteemed homeopaths. Then we have different subjects article as well, how to manage infectious diseases, case studies, evidence-based case studies for hypothyroidism, adjustment disorders. If you want to go for knowledge, we are ready to share the knowledge. Plus, we invite you as well to share your knowledge with us, your expertise with us, and we'll help you out promote all over the world wherever we can at the best possible place. I would like to know from Dr. Rajesh if our speaker is back. Hello, Dr. Rajesh.
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Rajesh.
Dr. Yashika, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
So,
okay, okay. So, dear doctors and students, sorry for this technical lag. I don't know, because of some technical issue, Dr. Jay Kumar is not able to join us, although he has joined, but due to some echo issue, so we asked him to, do the correction, but maybe because of some issue, he is not able to do that one. So he restarted the system and he assured me that he soon join us. So for the time being, I request you to have some patience, and we're trying our level best to communicate with him and make him available on the platform as soon as possible.
thank you so much, sir. Please do as soon as possible. So we have a So we have a voice for homeopathy section as well. On homeopathy360.com. You can have a look here on the voice for homeopathy section. If you want to raise your voice, or you want to raise any issue, or you want to contribute, or want to join us for homeopathic upliftment, like anything can be done for the betterment of homeopathy as per your point of view. So we welcome you for the same as well. Like CCRH is conducting few surveys. Many people are requesting people to fight to uplift homeopathy. So you are also invited for the same if you want to join us and then do something for the homeopathy. So there are many sections. We have Homeobuzz as well, our online publication, online journal. It's the digital newsstand, which updates you about our pharma products as well. Latest news section, anything about homeopathy, related to homeopathy. Any of the competitions going on all over the country. Any of the award schemes coming out. Any of the research projects being invited by Ministry of Ayush or CCRH. Like this is a short-term research project being asked by Ministry of Ayush for the management of COVID-19 under EMR scheme. Then we have competition also is there from CCRH, which is being there, where you can participate. You can submit your short film poster competition about myth busting facts about homeopathy. I think its last date is tomorrow. So if somebody is interested to submit any poster, any slideshow, any short film, they can also visit. So we have so many things to share with us through this portal. We have online newsletter which is being given to all, which is being sent to all our esteemed homeopaths in our list. So these are the things we offer to our learners. We try to organize every single information related to homeopathy and make it universally accessible to all homeopaths plus layman plus everybody who has a keen interest in homeopathy or its uses, whatever it is. We try to make sure that we are the best at what we do. We have tried our level best to create it as an exceptional education hub for each generation of homeopaths. Whether he's a beginner, whether he's a practitioner, whether he has just started his practice, if he wants to go opt for any job, what are the career opportunities available, whether he's already a clinician, whether he's a researcher, whether he's a lecturer. We try to offer whatever best we can through our links, through our these portals. Like we have Homeopathy 360, we have a book section, that is Vigen Books, where we invite writers, we invite authors, where authors are whoever is writing a book, we welcome everybody to share their books with us, and we'll help you out, promote all over the world. So this is what we try to connect this is how we try to connect through all the homeopaths worldwide, through our pharmaceuticals, through our recently started homeopathic academy, where we are offering e-learning courses to the people. You can also visit it through our I'll show you through our 360 website directly. We have all sections, all our sections. All our sections below the visit our beaches and summer activities as well. Spread our opus, the story of the natural places at Pune. Then you see the places to as the software, the software, with trees, space, big kind of we have recently started about to of doing homeopathy can visit anytime and Rajji, I just wanted to confirm if he's or if he's back or he has started to join us.
ठीक है. Dear doctors, we are trying to our level best to make him join, but due to some internet issue, is not able to join at the proper time. So I request you some patience, and we'll try our level best that as soon as it is possible from our side, we soon start the session for you all. So just allow us 5-10 more minutes. I believe that within that period we resolve the issue.
Dear all, sorry for the inconvenience caused to you. For the time being, we can go. Can I request Dr. Purav Desai to clear the doubts, the question answer session for the first speaker, Dr. Purav Desai. If somebody has some question regarding whatever he explained about the anatomy of appendix or its clinical application and the homeopathic medicines. If somebody wants to ask, please raise your hand if you want to come on video, or if you want to just ask your query, kindly type in the chat box, and we'll try to resolve it through Dr. Purav Desai. Thank you. So
Yeah,
over to you.
fine, madam. Not an issue. Student may raise the question. I am there to assist them.
Sir, there is a question from Dr. Harsh Sharma that what is
Mhm.
the medicine we used for chronic diseases of appendix?
See, basically for chronic appendicitis, I prefer to have the constitutional medicine. But most probably, what I have observed is generally the patients of appendicitis are generally prone to have gastric problems. So the likely medicines might be belong to like lycopodium or Naxomica or Bryonia. These are the common medicines to be found useful in the management of cases of chronic appendicitis. But preferably, if being a physician, you go to a proper case taking, because in chronic appendicitis there is the time. In acute appendicitis, the time is very less, where you need to manage in a very fast manner. So that time probably you may need to indicate some medicine on a simple therapeutic base of knowledge. But in chronic cases, you may do a proper case taking and select the medicine. Most probably, you may come across to have the indication of lycopodium or Naxomica or Bryonia, somewhat like that.
Thank you so much, sir. There is one more query of Dr. Pooja Kumari. She want you to just explain nerve supply in short. That was not clear to her.
Let me again open my screen so that can be better for her.
As you wish, sir. As you wish.
Fine. I just sharing the screen of mine. See, basically, the nerve supply of all GI tube is from the autonomic innervation, right? Here, there is sympathetic as well as parasympathetic innervation. If you see the sympathetic innervation, basically it is derived from T9 and T10 segments, and that is again through celiac plexus. See, celiac plexus is little on the higher level. Appendix is basically at the level of you can say transpyloric plane. So sorry, transtubercular plane. So that is almost at the level of right iliac fossa. While this celiac plexus is almost at the level of T9, T10. So it is quite ahead. Even though the nerve supply is from the different that I mean to say from the higher level. That is why the pain in the appendix again first feel in the umbilical region, and then it comes to the local region. Same way, if you see the parasympathetic innervation, that is derived from the vagus. So simply you remember autonomic innervation by sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is through T9 and T10 segment, and that again distributed through the celiac plexus, while the parasympathetic innervation is through the vagus. So this is about the nerve supply, right? Still any doubt?
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I hope the doubt is clear of Dr. Pooja Kumari. Anybody has any other queries? Please ask.
Also, dear doctors, I want to update you that instead of typing in the chat box, there is a provision that you can come live on the webinar platform. You can see in the control panel we have this option, raise a hand. You can click on that. I receive a request and I make you live on the webinar platform. So you can speak also, and you can also interact with the audience and with the speaker live. So if any doctor or any student who wants to talk with the help of mic and wants to speak, so just click the hand raise option which is available below the slides option. So you just click on river and I make you live on the web platform. Like we receive a request by Dr. Gautam. So if any doctor who wants to have any question, they can come live on the platform. So kindly make use of this hand raise option. Okay, I believe I have received some request. Okay. So there are lots of doctors who work. I'm first allowing Dr. Prachi Arvadia. So I'm allowing you. I accepted your request, and you can see if in case you are able to log in into the webinar platform. You can see now your icon is appear up, and click on the mic and the webinar option so that we can listen and see you. Dr. Prachi, if I'm not wrong, if in case you're able to hear me. Okay, so let me. I don't think Dr. Prachi is able to connect us. Let me ask Dr. Gautam to have the question. So I'm bringing him on the webinar platform. Dr. Gautam, I'm allowing you, and kindly follow the process which I just guided. And and very the positive news is that Dr. Jay Kumar is also able to join us. Yeah.
Welcome, sir.
Dr. Gautam, I have allowed you. If in case you want to ask a question, meanwhile Dr. Jay Kumar do his setups, you can ask any question to Dr. Purva.
Shall I
Dr.
start?
Gautam, yes, you are. We can.
So let me close.
Okay, Dr. Gautam, let's take it in the end. Sorry for the interruption, and because we already get late, let Dr. Jay Kumar start the session. I will give you the opportunity in the end. Dr. Jay, you can start now.
Yes.
Dear audience, we felt very regret for all such technical issue, but I feel that if you listen, Dr. Jay, the upcoming session is more knowledgeful, and you will definitely have something from this session. So kindly be seated, and just we require you half an hour more so that more information can be given to you on the applied anatomy.
Hello.
Dr. Jay, you can
Shall I start?
continue. Yes, you can continue.
Okay. Okay. Sorry for interruption from my side. There was network issue and laptop issue. Okay. My topic was pancreas. I was saying is many students different from different university they are attending this session. So regarding the pancreas, the abdominal organ, there is a definite format. All students of first BHMS they should follow this format while studying also or while writing a long answer question. And the format has got following points: introduction of that organ, location with diagram, external features of that organ with diagram, relations of that particular organ, that includes again peritoneal and visceral relations. Now here I have kept pancreatic duct, that is specifically for pancreas. So if any particular features that you can add, blood supply of that particular organ, venous drainage of that organ, lymphatic drainage of the organ, histology of that particular organ, functions, and applied anatomy. If you follow this format for study purpose related to abdominal organs, you will be able to answer any 2-mark question, 5-mark question, 10-mark or 20-mark, or any MCQ. Prepare as a LAQ, then you will be able to answer any question in Viva as well as in theory. Let's begin with the topic pancreas. Now the first point, as I said, introduction. Never start your answer directly with haphazard points. Always introduce your answer in theory as well as Viva if the question is there. In theory, you have to go this way. Introduction is, it's a part of digestive system. It is a mixed type of gland. It's a mixed gland because it has got exocrine as well as endocrine part. Exocrine part is related with the secretion of pancreatic juices, which is required for digestion purpose. And endocrine part that functions the secretion of insulin that is related to our sugar or glucose metabolism. This organ is situated in central part of abdomen, that is umbilical region. Retroperitoneum, it is behind the peritoneum, and its shape is inverted J shape like a hockey stick. Introduction that should give a explanation in short. Next is location of pancreas. Regarding the location of abdominal organs, you all might be knowing about the 9 quadrants. There are 9 quadrants. For writing the question related to any organ, a long answer question, we have to draw this diagram and show exact position in particular quadrant. Now I have not drawn here the pancreas position, but I am showing just the 9 quadrants. Now the pancreas occupies umbilical region and the left hypochondrium region. That means the gland is obliquely placed. It is from right to left. That is from duodenum to spleen. It extends from duodenum to spleen. Obliquely placed, running upward from umbilical region to left hypochondriac region. Pancreas lies more or less horizontally. Instead of horizontal, I will use the word oblique. In the diagram also you can see it is obliquely placed. So it occupies the umbilical, epigastric and left hypochondriac region. The vertebrae related posteriorly, they are T12, L1, L2 and L3. It crosses the posterior abdominal wall obliquely from concavity of duodenum to the hilum of spleen. Now again, studying the abdominal organs, always try to study the organs in relation to the never concentrate on a particular one organ. In that will be just reading and trying to remembering. But if you correlate the structures which are surrounding to that particular organ, then it will be easy to remember. Now here, the closer organs in the diagram, you can see a duodenum, the cap of duodenum or C-shaped duodenum, and the spleen. Posteriorly, 2 major vessels we can see, that is aorta and IVC. So try to remember the major organs first, then you can remember the minor organs. First focus on major that are expected from the examiners. The greater part of the gland is retroperitoneal. It is behind the serous floor of the lesser sac. It is left. Let's go for the next slide. External features. The gland is divided into different parts: head, neck, body and tail. And one more part is uncinate process of that is coming from the head. So these are the 4. In the diagram also you can see the gland is lobulated. That's why it's a Greek word. Pan is all and cres means fleshy. The gland is fleshy totally. The division again, the head with uncinate process, narrow constricted part is called as neck, large part is called as body, and the last tail which is related to the hilum of spleen. Now relations. Now relations of pancreas. In the exam also you have to write relations of different parts of the pancreas separately. You can write also in tabular format. First write about the head, then about the relations of neck, then the relations of body of pancreas, and lastly the relations of the tail. Firstly, the head of pancreas. Starting I told ki pancreas, the head is, you can see also in the diagram, head is located within the cavity of duodenum. Rather, the duodenum is C-shaped structure. This C-shaped concavity is occupied by the head of pancreas. So easy to remember, duodenum will have relations to head of pancreas superiorly, laterally, inferiorly. So everywhere the duodenum is very closely related to the head of pancreas. So one can easily remember 3 relations of the duodenum, that 3 relations of head of pancreas, that is superiorly, first part of duodenum, laterally, the second part of duodenum, and inferiorly duodenum. These are the structures which are very closely related. These also, they are crossing the uncinate process, that is superior mesenteric vessel, superior mesenteric artery and the superior mesenteric vein. We can see also a jejunum, loop of intestine, and large intestine colon is also related anteriorly. What is posteriorly? The right sided diagram. Posteriorly, we can see important to remember formation of portal vein. The portal vein is formed joining of splenic and superior mesenteric vein. That is the posterior relation. In the right sided diagram, you can clear cut see posterior relation, main relation is portal vein, the which is splenic, joining of splenic and the superior mesenteric vein. The neck, relations of neck. Neck is narrow constricted part lying between the head and the body of pancreas. So this is very small part. Neck anteriorly related to lesser sac, pylorus, and the gastroduodenal artery. Posteriorly, it is related to, one can see, portal vein, that is joining of superior mesenteric and the splenic vein. The body, which is the largest part of the pancreas, which is extending from the neck to tail. The relations of body of pancreas. Anteriorly, it is separated from stomach by omental bursa. Posteriorly, abdominal aorta, IVC, left suprarenal gland, we can see in the diagram, lower diagram, left kidney, left renal vessels, and the splenic vein. So main major relation posteriorly, they are splenic vein, renal vein, left suprarenal gland, abdominal aorta. Superiorly, it is related to celiac trunk and celiac plexus. One must add pancreatic duct in the answer of pancreas, because usually we write the parts, we write the borders, surface, from where it extends, where it goes. Second part of duodenum, that is also important for the answer and understanding the anatomy. Function of pancreas is secretion of pancreatic juice, but these juices are carried by two ducts, that is main pancreatic duct and accessory pancreatic duct. These ducts open in the second part of duodenum along with a duct called as bile duct. Everyone knows the function of bile duct is to carry the bile from gallbladder. Now these two join, main pancreatic duct and bile duct. Bile is also required for the digestion. हाँ एक्चुअली रूम में लेफ्ट, सॉरी अगेन आ गया मैं. हेलो, sorry. The blood supply, superior pancreaticoduodenal artery and inferior pancreaticoduodenal artery. Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay.
You're audible.
Superior pancreaticoduodenal artery and inferior pancreaticoduodenal artery, they supply the pancreas as well as the duodenum. Same way, parallel there are veins. They are called as superior pancreaticoduodenal and inferior pancreaticoduodenal veins, which drain the venous drainage related to pancreas. Splenic artery also supplies the pancreas while reaching the spleen. Parallel, there is a vein called as splenic vein, which drains the venous drainage related to the pancreas. Lymphatic drainage of the pancreas, head and neck, and the ventral and dorsal part, it is drained into pancreaticoduodenal group of lymph nodes. Body and tail is drained into pancreaticosplenic lymph nodes, and ultimately into the celiac and superior mesenteric group of lymph nodes, efferents. That is about the lymphatic drainage. Histology part, as the gland is having double function, endocrine as well as exocrine, so we will have the different cells, exocrine cells as well as endocrine functions. Rather, the cells which are related to exocrine function, they are the called as pancreatic acini. They secrete the pancreatic enzymes and the juice. And the cells which are related to synthesis or secretion of insulin, they are isolate cells that you can see. There are ducts called as interlobar ducts. Functions of pancreas. Pancreas already is in beginning I told it is related to exocrine and endocrine function. The exocrine part secrete the pancreatic juice. Endocrine part secretes the insulin, glucagon, and somatostatin, and it also secretes pancreatic enzymes which are required for the digestion purpose. The applied anatomy. Now, easy to remember, the if we use the word itis, that is inflammation. So inflammation of pancreas is pancreatitis. Student can remember this easy way. If you add a word itis to the organ, that is inflammation. We are having stomach inflammation, that is gastritis. Kidney, that is nephritis. So inflammation of pancreas is pancreatitis. We are having a disease, cancer of pancreas, and less secretion of insulin, that leads to diabetes mellitus. Anyone, any query? Hello?
Hello. Yes, sir.
I finished.
Hello.
I finished with my topic.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much,
If
sir.
students are having any questions,
I hope. Yeah. Wait. I'll just ask. Thank you so much, sir, for your such a wonderful explanation on anatomy of pancreas. I hope everybody had a fantastic revision of anatomy of pancreas. On behalf of 360 and Vision Group, I would like to thank you, sir, Dr. Jaykumar, for your valuable time. And I would like to request everybody to ask the queries if you have from both the speakers. We had a pending question from Dr. Gautam as well. And anybody who wants to ask any question regarding anatomy of pancreas from Dr. Jaykumar, you're welcome. Kindly raise a hand or type in the chat box. We'll connect you. We'll ask the question from the speaker. We have a question, sir, from Dr. Bhavya Sahu. She's asking about the homeopathic management
actually,
I think it's related to pancreas.
no,
Can you
I was
please
not
explain in
prepared.
short?
I was not prepared with this topic. The only anatomy and applied part, homeopathic management was not rather related with this.
Okay, so you want to share some of the remedies for the attendees, if you want to share. Like if somebody's asking if you have a pancreatitis, if somebody's suffering from pancreatitis, so any of the remedies, any Polycrest or good remedies which you have like in your practice, during your practice, if you have gone through any of your cases, medicines would have act. Or if Dr. Pura wants to share his experience on pancreatitis, if any of the remedies he wants to share. major remedies. Dr. Purab, are you with us?
I'm there. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
See, basically, pancreatitis, generally acute pancreatitis is very, I mean to say the prognosis of acute pancreatitis is not good. Generally, again, the cases of acute pancreatitis in general practice are again very less. But if the patients having the continuous problem with the GI system, and if diagnosed as the acute pancreatitis, uh, basically what I suspect is we need to manage the symptomatic point of view and other, and additional to that, I also recommend to have the physician opinion too, as the condition, if we see the overall prognosis of pancreatitis, the fatality is quite high. So only taking or only managing individually, it's better to have management in addition with the physician too. That is what that my opinion.
Yes,
Thank you,
sir,
sir.
very
Thank you.
correctly. I want to share. Yes,
Yeah, please, sir.
sir had correctly said. Inflammation of pancreas or pancreatitis is autodigestion of pancreas itself by the pancreatic enzymes. It's a very serious condition. One cannot, or a single-handedly, one cannot manage, or only homeopathic medicine will not help. We require a help of surgeon and physician. It's a very serious condition, pancreatitis. Yes. Hello.
Yes, sir. Hello. Your voice is cracking, I think.
Done from my side, madam.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. I
Done
think
from my side.
Dr. Rajesh, we had a doubt from Dr. Gautam. I think some question he wanted to ask and connect to us. Can you please connect him with us, or I shall ask the question from Dr. Purab, whatever
Yes,
he needs.
madam. Yes, madam. What is the question, please?
Sir, it was the what could be the guideline on management of appendicitis cases following the homeopathic scope and limitations?
Pardon? Please repeat, madam.
What could be the guideline on management of appendicitis cases following the homeopathic scope and limitations?
Appendicitis.
The management, any guidelines you want to share for the management of appendicitis cases?
See,
Yes,
in
yes.
appendicitis,
Yes, he
appendix,
wanted.
let me start. So, appendicitis is again a very acute condition, and it has to be again closely monitored. It again need to closely monitor. So, whenever there is the cases of appendicitis, first you verify whether it's a true case of appendicitis or not. You can prescribe the acute medicine as per the presenting symptoms, and you can may have the opinion, second opinion of the surgeon too. But if it is a acute chronic appendicitis or some other symptomatology are there, you can go through a proper case taking and you come to the constitutional medicines. But preferably, as I told you, the commonest medicines found to be useful are, again, I repeat, that are the Lycopodium, Belladonna, Brownia. But at least in acute appendicitis, you can prescribe Belladonna and then you send to the surgeon. That will definitely help. So that is what my take-home message from this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Dr. T.S. Ashta Ishwaran is asking, there is some specific remedy for acute pancreatitis?
Inflammatory, we can use inflammatory remedies, but again, I will suggest, considering the general condition of patient, one can rather these cases to be managed indoor wise, not OPD basis.
Okay, Dr. Yashika, I think for the moment this is sufficient enough. We have lots of queries. So what I think is that we shared the contact details and email ID of our speakers to the audience, and they can ask one-to-one and can interact with the speakers in that group.
Fine, sir.
Okay, sir.
Sure.
So
I will just put in the chat box the email ID of both the speakers.
even I request to
I
our
hope this.
speakers, if in case they can write down, then just share your numbers and email ID so that if any student or any doctor have the queries, they can interact with you.
Yeah, I've just put in the chat box
Okay.
both the email IDs. I hope everybody's doubt is clear.
Okay, I have,
Anybody wants to have more questions, you can mail us to webinar@homeopathy360.com, or the email ID is being provided, and the contact numbers, in fact. So,
I have shared my contact number on chat, and probably if you receive any kind of query, you can also transfer to it my email ID. I will definitely feel pleasure to assist it.
Okay.
sure, sir. Doctor, sure, sir.
So,
So,
Dr. Yashika, I request you to conclude the webinar
thank you
and
so much. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
sure, sure. So, on behalf of 360 and BGen Group, I would like to thank both the speakers for their contribution and the valuable time and connecting with us and sharing their knowledge with all the attendees. My heartfelt thanks also goes to all our learners, not just all those who have been with us for all long, for after like for this between the technical issues as well. I would like to thank everybody for attending the webinar. Before I sign off for today, a very, very important vote of thanks must also go to the people behind our team Homeopathy 360, especially Dr. Rajesh. Yes, it's this team 360 that works day in and out to bring you information related to homeopathy and keep you all updated. Thank you, everyone. Stay connected with us and keep participating likewise. We'll try to share a recorded version of this webinar also with us on our YouTube channel. We would love to hear from you as well. If you have any suggestions, you're always welcome. So, thank you so much for taking out time and being here today and making this webinar a success. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, all speakers and dear audience. Thank you.